Good evening. This is the Budget and Public Employees Committee. It is May 20th. It is 6:06. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Sanye. Vice Chair Browning.
Present.
Alderwoman Velasquez. Alderman Devotie. Chair Aldrich.
Present.
Alderwoman Sanye. Alderwoman Velasquez. Alderman Devotie. 2 present.
Thank you. With that, we will move to the next order of business, which will be item number 4, which is the Board Bill number 1, FY27 budget for the City of St. Louis, which that bill is being held because we're not voting on that at the moment. We will move to the next item, which is committee discussion. For the individuals in the room, if you would like to testify on the FY27 budget, there is a sign-in sheet in the back where you could be able to sign in for that. Everyone will have 3 minutes. Once you come up, first Director Paul Payne will present the budget. After he's done presenting, we will take public comment from residents. You have 3 minutes to speak. Just state your first and last name. Also in the back of the room, there is some flyers that have a QR code that the Board of Aldermen is doing a survey around the RAMS funding and want to make sure that we get community feedback on that. So please also make sure you grab one of those flyers, as that board bill will have a hearing coming up this Tuesday at 11 a.m. In the HUD's committee at the Board of Aldermen. But to be respectful of everybody's time, we will jump right on in, and we will have our Budget Director, Paul Payne, come up to the mic. And Budget Director, just state your first and last name, and then when you need us to go to the next slide, you just say next slide, and the clerk will do it. It's your floor.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Alderman. Good evening, everyone. What I'd like to go through is this presentation, which I've made to the Budget Committee back in the first week of May as they began their deliberations. All of these materials that you'll see tonight are also published on the Budget Division's website online. So if you go to the first budget slide, there we go. The FY27 annual operating plan totals $1.41 billion. That's actually just a slight increase, a modest increase of 0.5% over the prior fiscal year. The box shows you below is what we categorize as various funds, with the largest being the general fund of $637.1 million. That's a 4.9% increase. That actually reflects some modest growth of about 1.7% in revenue, but it's 4.9% up because in the prior year we had, if you may recall, in the general fund we had a significant amount of refunds in the earnings and payroll tax, and this year we're seeing that beginning to level out and stabilize. So we are seeing a 4.9% increase for next year, reflecting those lesser level of refunds going forward. In the special revenue category, special revenue is revenue that is certain special funds for specific purposes. We have the use tax funds, some of the special sales tax funds. That's totals $257.6 million. That's a 3.9% increase. We have use tax receipts or appropriations up $5.9 million. Some miscellaneous funds up 3.7, and notice the gaming fund is up about $1 million this year. Grant funds at $71.9 million. That's a decline of 18.3%. That's a little of a misnomer, only because within the grant funds category, there are interest earnings from ARPA. And last year we had appropriation of $20 million from those interest earnings, which are in the grant funds, but not related to ARPA specifically or directly. And this coming fiscal year, that's declined to about $6 million. In the debt service fund is $13.1 million. That's a 0.8% increase. The debt service fund are the property tax levies that we use to support our general obligation bond debt. The capital improvement funds of $50.4 million. That's a decline of 17.9%. The capital improvement funds have a number of sources, primarily the half-cent sales tax as well as some park sales taxes as well. But the big variable from year to year is it also received 1/2 of the prior year operating surplus. In the prior fiscal year, that was actually smaller than in FY26, and so that's why you see the decline of $11 million in FY27. Enterprise funds at $335.2 million. That's a decline of just under 1%. The enterprise funds are represented by the airport and water divisions in that they are operated separately as what's called proprietary funds, or they operate as their own business where they generate revenues and have expenditures to match. Internal service funds are technically funds that our departments charge each other to pay for services provided through multiple departments. For instance, like the gas fuel fund, where gasoline is provided to all operating departments and they pay into that fund. That's at $49.9 million. That's a decline of 5.7%. So you can see in total all those funds are $1.4 billion, up 0.5%, and in the chart below, the pie chart, you see the general fund is 45% of that total. And next slide. So these next several slides, we just illustrating how we are doing some of our key revenue sources. As I mentioned with the earnings and payroll tax, they have recovered from last year where we had a significant amount of refunds related to the going back to the pandemic years and telecommuters. The fiscal earnings tax is up 46.6% and the payroll tax up 14.2%. But again, those results were skewed by the refunds. What you really want to look for is what's the underlying growth. And when we did see some growth through the third quarter at 3.7%, and the payroll tax less dramatic and more modest growth of 1.7%. Next slide. A large number of our revenues are provided by sales and use taxes. The general fund itself receives some 1 3/8 cent sales tax, but as I mentioned earlier, the special fund categories have a number of sales taxes, so it's an important source of revenue. So what this does is basically tracking the 1 cent sales tax as an indicator of how well our other, both the general fund sales tax as well as some of those special funds are doing. We did see some growth fiscal year to date. It's up 3.6%. If you recall from last year when I made this presentation, sales tax had actually declined, and you can see that in the chart where we saw a decline. So we did see a recovery of sorts from this year. In the local use tax, it was also up, but more modest 2.8%. It also saw a decline last year, so it's a bit of a recovery. Local use tax is beginning to take on more characteristics of the sales tax. Previously, it was mostly paid by businesses, but now with online sales and such, it's taking on more of those characteristics of typical of the sales tax. And the next slide. Another important source of revenue is just to give us an idea about how we're doing, because we are a commuter city and have a lot of revenues based on tourism. We have restaurant and hotel tax receipts. And these sort of diverged in this current fiscal year. The restaurant gross receipts tax was up 7.6% through the third quarter, while the hotel gross receipts tax had declined by 5.8%. Next slide, please. So this gives us an illustration of where we stand both historically as well as from the estimate of FY26, the revised estimate through the third quarter, and a preliminary estimate for the FY27 fiscal year. In the general fund, we had an estimate of $607.4 million. Through the third quarter, it was tracking at about 626.2, which is about an $18.7 million over budget, and with our estimate at $607.4 million for next year. And as I mentioned, this local use tax had seen a recovery of sorts from last year. It is also tracking higher than budget. Last year, if you remember, we look at that exhibit and you'll see that FY26, or it would have been FY25 over under. There was a lot of red ink there, so fortunately we're not seeing that this year. In all those funds, the half cent and in the sales tax, as well as all those parks funds, we are tracking slightly over on estimates, about $26.7 million in all those funds combined. And the FY27 estimate we'll be getting into directly in the coming pages. Next slide, please. And before we get into specific fund categories, I did want to highlight on this slide some of the major highlights throughout the budget. In the employee and pay and benefit cost increases, we've got $18 million across departments for a number of things for employee compensation, both salary increases as well as costs of other increases. The Department of Personnel completed its salary surveys and salary study to review salary structure within the city and to bring entry-level salaries, at least of employees, competitive to the market. So it's been implemented in this budget. Those not affected by that entry-level adjustment will receive a 3% salary. Most other city employees and departments, and there's a 7% pay increase for uniformed police and firefighters. Also, in addition to the salary increases, we typically see an increase related to our health insurance costs, a 5.3% increase for $3.8 million, and that includes a $1.6 million for police retiree health insurance. Due to some improved performance in the markets over the last year, the pension funds have seen returns exceeding their assumed rate of return, so there is a $6.5 million reduction in our contributions for next year. In emergency housing and neighborhood stabilization efforts, there is a $2 million allocation to the forestry division for weed and debris cleanup out of the local use tax fund. This is specifically to go after those areas which forestry division, which has crews and things to deal with normal weed and debris removal, but these are to tackle some of the harder type areas where over the years debris has sort of gotten to areas and trees have grown to where your normal mowing and weed removal just can't get to it. And so this is a enhanced effort to address those areas. In human services, there's a $2 million allocation to continue the Code Blue emergency housing program, again, using local use tax funds. There's a $4 million increase for derelict building demolition to a total of $9.3 million, and that using local use tax and Prop P use tax funds. There's a $1 million increase for the Right to the Council housing initiative, and a $1 million increase for continuing the support of tiny homes program. In the area of public safety, an $8.6 million increase to the police department, which is a net 4.3% increase, including the pay increases I discussed above. A $5 million reappropriation of ARPA interest to fund completion of the PSAP. That's our public safety answering point building that's under construction over by the fire department headquarters on Jefferson. There's a $2 million increase to the Department of Corrections to address overtime costs as well as inmate medical contract services. And a $300,000 increase to SEMA. They're adding a couple of additional staff as well as some contracting funds for emergency planning purposes. In other services, a $5 million increase to meet rising costs of police-related judgments. That would be in the City Councilor's office. A $1.3 million increase to the street department. That does a number of things. $600,000 increase to replenish the salt supply. It'll meet $1 million next year, and another $400,000 for contract snow removal. $500,000 for the traffic division to perform a street signage and striping inventory. A $200,000 increase in refuse for increased efforts on abandoned tire removals. $2.6 million increase in equipment service and facilities management to reflect some of the increases there, both in maintenance as well as utilities. A $1 million increase in the Board of Elections for 4 scheduled elections that will occur in FY27. And a $500,000 general fund subsidy to the Communications Division, offsetting the decline in the cable franchise tax revenue that is occurring. In overall personnel totals, net reduction of 22 positions in the general fund and a net reduction of 82 positions across all funds. Next slide, please. So in the general fund, the way we generally present this is we say, okay, what was our starting base for the current fiscal year and revenue, and then we note the adjustments and do the same for the expenditures to show what's changed. So if you're beginning revenue base in FY26, the original estimate is $607.4 million. As I mentioned, we're tracking above that by about 18.7, at least through the third quarter. And then we have some net growth assumptions of a 1.7%. So that brings our estimated revenue for FY27 for the general fund at $637.1 million. So if you take the FY26 budget and $607.4 million, and then you identify what increases or decreases are occurring. I won't go through each one of these individually, but I will just pull out some of the highlights. As I mentioned in the general government category, the biggest items there, you'll see our Information Systems Services Agency, that's ITSA. They do have some increases there related to some data processing manager, as well as some of our contractual services there of $600,000. But the biggest increase you can see in the city councilor's office, they've got some contractual services for case management there, as well as the $8 million. Part of that was from the police department's judgment account, and part of that is for just was there within their regular budget. But in total, we'll have $10 million in the city councilor's office for judgments. That's an $8 million increase there. And there's another $1 million in the police department. So a total of $11 million, where we would normally have something like 5. So that's, or 6, that would be a $5 million increase overall. In finance, smaller increases in the comptroller's office, offset with some miscellaneous reductions. In the next slide, the citywide accounts, that is an account within the budget that's basically not department specific, but it contains a lot of items in there which are charges, again, not specific to any one department. In last fiscal year, we allocated $10 million, but for that was for the salary increases, which has now been distributed to departments. So that's why you see that reduction there. There's some also costs associated with the convention center, asset preservation. The subsidy I mentioned to the communications division is also located in that account. In the Parks, Recreation, and Forestry, there were some additional positions for, particularly with forestry, with weed and debris program, and offsetting that were some decreases in per performance and contract services. County offices, the biggest increase there you're going to see is the Board of Elections, because that election year schedule we have next year. And judicial offices, the Circuit Court included their 4.5% increases in their budget. Under the state statute, we're required to fund them at their request. And then some increases in the Circuit Attorney's office, as well as the Sheriff's office. The next slide, please. In the street division, one thing, the Director of Streets is moving some positions to the towing division, so you see an increase and decrease there. But the bigger increases you'll see are the inventory of the signage and striping at the traffic division that I mentioned earlier, as well as those street division additions related to salt and contract snow removal, and the refuse division tire initiative, as well as some increases in gasoline. Fuel costs are going up this year. We expect them to be up, and refuse division is one of the largest users of our fuel. In the police department, as I mentioned, that includes the uniform salary increases 7%. Civilian salaries also up. Overtime as well. Includes a $1.6 million increase in the retiree medical account. One of the declines in that budget is the internal services account. The internal services account was budgeted this year at $16.5 million. There is a decrease this coming year simply because during the year, two of those services, their internal, the personnel services as well as legal services, they incorporated them within their budget this year. So what remains is a smaller amount of over $10 million for equipment services as well as facilities management, which will still be part of that internal service fund account. In the police pension, as I mentioned, is one of the 4 pension systems. It was down $3.1 million. In the fire department, the biggest increases there relate to what is known as pay parity with the police uniform pay increase, and they also get the 7%, which increases both the salaries and overtime of the department, and that's up $6.1 million overall. the fire pension systems, the fire retirement system, FRS and FRP, which is the fireman retirement plan. That's the newer plan. While FRS is a frozen plan, FRP was the one created with fire pension reform back in 2013. Those in total were down $1.9 million. And other areas of public safety, I mentioned the SEMA's increase. They have a couple new positions there, as well as some planning funds. Excise Commissioner is up one, Liquor Control Officer. Building Division is up as well. It has a net reduction of 3 vacant positions and an increase in contractual services. The big increase here is in the Justice Center. While showing reduced positions, those are vacant positions, we're trying to get the TOs, or what do we call the table of organization, or the personnel schedule, closer to what's actually filled. So it's got to reduce positions, although we reduce the salary savings to offset that. But its overtime costs were up, and as well as its meals and medical contractual services. In the Human Services Department, as I mentioned, in the special fund, we added $1 million for continuing the tiny homes program, but that's not in the general fund. In the Board of Public Service, you see the 2 increases there: facilities management of $1.4 million and equipment services division of $1.2 million, reflecting the costs of maintenance and utilities of the divisions. So you see total increases in the general fund of $29.7 million, which brings you to an FY27 base budget of $637.1, which balances out with the projected revenue. And this is an illustration of our earnings tax, or our general revenue fund outlook, starting with the earnings tax, $255.1 million, base increase of 2%. The property tax of $82.7 million. It will reflect, typically you'll see growth of about 2% in just new construction, although we do expect to see some decline related to tornado valuations of property which were damaged in the tornado. So that will pull down our projected growth. So we don't see much growth in property, estimating not much growth in property for next year. In the sales tax categories, we've got a $63.8 million, a 1% increase. Now, I mentioned this in previous presentations. I break out the marijuana sales tax simply because there's interest in it. It's not a big dollar amount, but since it is a new one, I do break it out. In FY25, it came in at $1.7 million. That was short of the original estimate, 2.2. And in this current fiscal year, it is, again, trailing at $1.4 million. So we're holding that flat at next year at $1.4 million. Payroll tax is set $47.2 million, or $47.7 million, a 1% increase over the revised estimates for this year. The increase in the franchise utility tax is $62.7 million. That is, the franchise utility tax are projected to fall short this year, primarily as you've heard, that with the water division's cash situation has not been able to remit the gross receipts tax payments that it does do annually to the general fund, and it will, but we do expect that to return to normal in FY27. Intergovernmental receipts of $21.6 million, 4.5% increase. The departmental fees and fines, $59.5 million. Well, licenses, I'll stop there. Go up one. Licenses typically are fixed fee amounts, and so we don't typically see much growth there. The $59.5 million department fees and fines, that's represent a 4.8% decrease, mostly in projected interest earnings for next year. And the other categories, that includes some of the transfers in from hotel taxes and other transfers in, down 2.3%. And in the, I won't go through these in details, but if you go in the general government, that the increase is for the city councilor, mostly that 27.2% increase of $47.2 million. In the city councilor's office, it's got that $8 million increase there. Non-departmental account, that reflects the $10 million that we allocated for pay. That's across most departments. The county offices is up 10.5%. That's the election board. Let me see what the other, police, public safety is up 5.4%. That is, includes the police and fire allocations. And then the Board of Public Service at 8%, that's the cost of those maintenance and utility costs. And you can see by the pie chart below, public safety at 51.8% is the largest share of the general fund budget. Next slide, please. And then highlight some of the special funds. The local use tax fund, as I mentioned, was up 2.8%. It's estimated at $60.2 million. And there's some of the departments that are funded. There is a ordinance allocation, which $5 million to affordable housing, $5 million to healthcare trust fund, and $3 million to the building demolition fund. Each of those funds actually had a balance in them as well, and that's why you see affordable housing budgeted at $6.7 million. Behavioral health and contracts that are funded within the healthcare trust fund includes the $1 million balance as well. That's $6 million, and building demolition fund includes $2.5 million in the balance, which brings that $3 million up to $5.5 million for FY27. Also, within what's known as the excess use tax fund, all these other services are funded. City Councilor's Affirmative Litigation Unit, the Forestry Division Weed and Debris Initiative, which is the one I mentioned at one time, $2 million fund. Refuse Division Bulky Pickup Program, Housing Conservation of the Building Division. The Office of Violence Prevention at $8.8 million, that is funded with use tax funds. And then a couple of the retirement systems. The police department also has a share of the use tax at $20.3 million. The health department, most of the non-grant funded services provided by health are funded with use tax monies, as well as a portion of the human services department. So the total budget for local use tax is $73.3 million. The Economic Development Sales Tax Fund, that's a half-cent sales tax for economic development purposes. It is allocated according to formula. 60% of those receipts are allocated to transit, which is estimated at $14.6 million in FY27. So that fund, as you know, allocated to transit expansion has not been spent pretty much. I mean, there has been some portions spent, but most of it's still accruing into that account, and it should be at the end of the fiscal year at about $101 million. 10% is allocated of the Economic Development Sales Tax Fund is allocated to neighborhood stabilization, and these are programs administered by both PDA, our Planning and Design Agency, and CDA, our Community Development Agency, at $1.9 million and $1.3 million respectively. 10% of the funds are allocated to workforce development. SLATE will be, our St. Louis Agency on Training and Employment will be allocating those funds $3.5 million, and the Director of Human Services also has a portion at $1.5 million. And then 10% for public safety infrastructure. These are supporting some things which provide the ability to for public safety infrastructure for certain things. For instance, the Comptroller's Office manages the 911 system, and that was an increment a number of years ago that we were paying for with those funds. SEMA funds its mass notification system with those funds as well. And then BPS, as I mentioned, we're allocating funds to help complete that PSEP project I talked about earlier. And then 10% by ordinance is allocated to the capital fund each year, and that is budgeted within our capital budget. So the total economic development sales tax fund is budgeted at $27.6 million. The half-cent sales, another one of our sales taxes, the half-cent public safety sales tax and use tax, Prop P. When this was approved, I believe going back to 2017, the half-cent sales tax was allocated for specific purposes, as you see on the chart, and then the use tax, which rises also with the sales tax, also was allocated by ordinance according to formula. So 66% of the public safety sales tax goes to the police department, and that's budgeted at $15.5 million next year. 28% goes to the fire department, which is budgeted at $6.7 million next year, and 6% goes to the circuit attorney's office for $2.7 million. So the portion of the sales tax for Prop P is budgeted at $24.9 million. The use tax portion of the public safety sales and use tax fund, 25% goes to after-school programs and summer jobs. The Director of Public Safety has a summer jobs program funded at $500,000. There's an annual police cadet program funded at $700,000. And then we are also utilizing additional existing funds to subsidize SLATE summer jobs of $1 million. In the Circuit Attorney's Office, that also is allocated 7.7% of the use tax, and that would be $500,000. 25% goes to recreation programs at $2 million. 17.3% goes to the building demolition. And as I mentioned, this is one of the areas where they had balanced funds that were appropriating more than what was allocated, more than what they receive in new money, but existing balances, so which will total $3.8 million in FY27. And then finally, 25% of those use tax revenues are allocated to social work and mental health. So that was the Director of Human Services at $2.4 million. As I mentioned, the capital funds budget at $50.4 million is a decrease of $11 million from the previous fiscal year. Again, most of that decline is due to the smaller prior year operating surplus of actually it was $9.35 million, of which $4.1 million was previously allocated to flood wall repairs, so there's $5.25 million of that surplus within the capital budget. It does include $6.8 million in street and bridge projects from the gas tax receipts, and most of those capital half-cent sales tax receipts that you see in the pie chart are allocated by ordinance. And as your host and the alderman could tell you, $10.7 million are allocated to ward improvements. That represents 50% of the half-cent sales tax. And that box to the right, that half-year prior surplus, that's just to highlight those items which were funded with that $5.2 million from the remaining portion of the operating surplus. On the next slide, these next couple of slides just detail the changes in personnel totals across funds. The general fund, as I mentioned, at 4,696 positions is down 22 positions. Special funds at 642 are down 59 positions. Grant funds at 179 are down 10 positions. And enterprise funds at 898 are up 9 positions overall, with total all funds at 6,415 positions. That's a decline of 82 in total. And the bar chart just shows you the allocation by department of those position totals. And this also tells you over the last 10 years what the trends have been. You can see the general fund is down 349 positions, and overall we're down about 260 positions over the last 10 years. I always include a couple of slides related to pension funds. The pension funds are one of those things where it might not, changes might not be immediate, but it's one thing you need to keep an eye on because it has an impact over the years going forward. It's like debt service in which you don't want to get too, you want to keep an eye so that your future costs don't get too far out of line. As I mentioned, in FY27, we do see a decline of $6.5 million, but they are still over $100 million in costs in this coming budget for our pension contributions. And you can see by the indication below below the bar chart where each of those funds, how those funds have been allocated. This next slide shows what the funding status of each of those funds are, the pension funds are. Typically, you're looking at, it's fairly well funded if it's 80% or more funded status, where the market value or the actuarial value is 80% or more of the unfunded liabilities. And we're pretty close to being well funded. ERS is trailing a bit, that 80%, but most of the other funds are close to or slightly over 80%. So the challenge hasn't been so much the funded status as much as the cost of maintaining that funded status. As I mentioned, it's over $100 million this current fiscal year, and our unfunded total liabilities for all 4 pension systems are at $534 million. Now, I should point out, and I did put that other note on there, that does not include the police OPEB. OPEB stands for other post-employment benefits, such as retiree health liability, which by itself is $379.2 million. Next slide, please. And one of the positive things we've seen over the last number of years is our fund balance. Fund balance is an important thing because it provides the city some sense of stability, particularly when you're facing economic uncertainties, potential for sudden downturns and things like that. It's also important to our credit rating agencies when they are looking at the city for its credit worthiness. And you can see over the years we've built up those reserves. It's taken some time. I can tell you back in FY17 when it was down and low, we had a couple downgrades from the rating agencies. And it took us a while to get back up. We took some steps during those times to build up the reserves. But we are now at, that red line actually represents what the Government Finance Officers Association, which is GFOA, recommends as a minimum level of reserves you should have, and that's 2 months of operation. So we finally got to that point in FY23, and so it was a long climb to get there. That's why, and it does help us when we talk about credit worthiness with the rating agencies, as well as just being there for when we need. My memory serves me when we go back to the Great Recession of 08-09, when we had 2 years of successive shortfalls in revenues and we spent down the balance significantly. So that's the kind of thing that you want to maintain a healthy level of reserves as a contingency. So finally, as I mentioned, the FY27 budget, $1.41 billion, is essentially flat at 0.5% increase. The general fund budget of $637.1 million, that's up 4.9%. And revenues are stabilizing with after the tax refunds in the prior fiscal year, and we've got modest overall growth projected going forward. The general and special funds include funds for addressing employee pay and benefit increases, emergency housing and neighborhood stabilization initiatives, funding needs for public safety and other city services. The capital budget's at $50.4 million, has declined $11 million, reflecting smaller prior year surplus funds. And finally, there's $5 million in ARPA interest funds reappropriated to help fund the PSAP, which we plan on combining with capital funds and other planned general obligation bond funds to complete funding of that project. And that's the completion of the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Again, so now we're going to move into public comment. I see that turn the light on. I know some people have walked in a little after the sign-in, so if you have not signed in, you can go to the back to be able to make sure that you sign in. Everyone will have 3 minutes when you come up to the mic. Just state your first and last name and the ward you reside in. And if you don't live in the city, that's okay. You can just say St. Louis County, and we'll jump right into it. The clerk will call each person. Once you call, you can just come on up and start your time. The clerk is in the back. If you need to sign in, we'll give a second for anybody who have not signed in. You can go to the blue table in the back to be able to sign in.
First, we have.
And you would need to, if you haven't signed in, you need to physically go over there and sign in.
I signed in, but I don't know how to get on the list.
If you signed in, you should be on the list to talk.
First, we have in opposition Mitchell Gegg from the 4th Ward.
And I promise we won't leave to everyone who wanted to talk have an opportunity to talk.
Hello, my name is Mitchell Gegg, and I live in the 4th Ward and work in the 8th Ward. I'm here to testify on the 2027 budget. The city should not give the police a budget of over $200 million, including a 7% raise and $500 million for expected lawsuits due to police misconduct. It is always worth repeating that St. Louis has the deadliest police department per capita in the country. Just yesterday, the police shot and killed a man less than 2 blocks from where I work. If this shooting happened a few hours earlier, I could have been hit by a stray bullet on my way into work. Based on the reporting available to me, the man had a pipe and a knife, but no gun, and the police attempted few, if any, measures to de-escalate before resorting to tasing him and then shooting him. He died in the hospital. I'm sorry I couldn't learn this man's name before coming here. Because of the police, he'll never be able to speak on his own behalf again. It doesn't matter if the cops are pursuing a proven serial killer. When an agent of the state kills someone, anyone, they violate the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 8th Amendments of the U.S. Constitution. If the police can violate the rights of the supposedly guilty, they will violate the rights of the innocent. Also, the police in St. Louis willingly coordinate with the human traffickers and domestic terrorists known as Immigration and Customs Enforcement, aka ICE. ICE tear gasses children. ICE gleefully guns down people in the street. ICE kidnaps people for concentration camps like the one in St. Genevieve, Missouri. ICE cruelly deports people hundreds or thousands of miles away from their family, sometimes to even worse concentration camps like CICOT in El Salvador. The police are welcome to prove me wrong by not shooting us in the streets and by protecting us from ICE. This morning, Police Chief Tracy bragged to the Board of Police Commissioners that homicides in the city were down and did not mention the successes of the Office of Violence Prevention, Show Me Peace, and other such organizations run by and for the people of St. Louis. By the way, 5 out of the 6 members of the BO Board of Police Commissioners received 0 votes from the people of St. Louis to hold their positions. I want the Board of Aldermen to stand with the people of St. Louis and reject this bloated police budget and fully fund the Right to Counsel program, the Office of Violence Prevention, and Codes Red and Blue. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you. Next, we have Tila Barnett Gajeski from the 7th Ward.
Hello, my name is Tila Barnett Gajewski. I live in the 7th Ward. I have lived and worked in the city of St. Louis for 4 years, and primarily in North City, and I'm very deeply concerned. I see the same patterns of divestment and neglect that I experienced in my neighborhood growing up. The fact that we can delineate where investments have gone based on what side of Del Mar it's on should bring shame to everyone who had the power to do something about it and didn't. What does it say about a city that overinvests in policing when half of its residents are still suffering from a tornado that happened a year ago? SLMPD does not deserve a single penny more than they are legally allowed, and they should not even get more than they did last year. We know what keeps us safe: quality public schools, access to public transportation, access to healthy food options, quality medical care, and the financial freedom to make autonomous decisions. I want nothing more than to start my family in a city full of life and choices. St. Louis is full of beautiful architecture, parks, and historical importance. The people of this city are full of passion, creativity, and brilliance. I imagine a St. Louis where each neighborhood flourishes, where you can be placed anywhere in the city and feel safe and excited to explore it. This will never happen unless you who are in power make the choice to put community first. It is a basic fact that police do not keep us safe. If we want to live in a safe city, we will invest in diversion programs, public schools, mental health services, and we will repair North City so we no longer see the stark difference from one side to the other. St. Louis can never truly thrive until all of St. Louis thrives. You have the power to shape St. Louis's future for decades to come based on what you invest in now. I hope you listen to the facts and to our stories and decide to support your community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Rosa Parks from Ward 6.
Hello. My name is Rosa Parks, and I'm a resident of the 6th Ward. And I'm here speaking not representative of any organization, but I'm here to urge you to reject this budget. This budget provides millions of unnecessary funding to SLMPD's budget. SLMPD is the most murderous police force in the United States per capita. Why are we rewarding the police for killing us? Today should have been Michael Brown Jr.'s 30th birthday. While he was not killed by an SLMPD officer, the same dynamics that existed within the Ferguson Police Department that allowed for Michael's murder are the same dynamics that exist within SLMPD. Yesterday, SLMPD shot and murdered a person in downtown for pouring coffee on them and wielding a metal pole and butcher knife. This person was probably experiencing a mental health crisis. Mental health crises should not end in murder. They should end in someone being provided with resources and support. The same resources and support that this budget would defund. A couple of weeks ago, it was revealed that SLMPD lied about the murder of 17-year-old Emishion Wilkins, stating that he turned and pointed a gun at him before they shot him. The reality, SLMPD shot and murdered a child in the back in cold blood. That was also in 2014 when that happened. In 2017, SLMPD and St. Louis SWAT murdered 21-year-old Isaiah Hammett when they served a no-knock warrant. In 2013, Kerry Ball Jr. was shot and murdered by SLMPD. The list goes on and on and on, and if I named off every person SLMPD has killed in the past 10 years, we would be here longer than Kerry is going to be in office. And currently, SLMPD and the Board of Police Commissioners is suing the City of St. Louis to get even more money, and if they lose, I'm sure they will find another way to steal our city's money, and the time is now to stand up to these murderous terrorists. Giving the police more money while defunding our violence prevention programs that have been shown to work, while not fully funding Right to Counsel, while not repairing the North Side, and not funding crucial city services that prevent crime is dumb. And if you choose to pass this budget, you're stating that Black lives don't matter. You are stating that fascism has a home in St. Louis, that the police can kill whoever they want, whenever they want. You're accepting that our city can be puppeteered and bought by Missouri state government, and you're choosing cowardice and not boldness. Do not let us go backwards. Do not let the police drain our city of its resources. Do not fund the police a penny more than required by law. This is our city, not theirs. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Janie Archie from the 3rd Ward.
Hello, my name's Janie Archie, and I'm actually speaking from the Coalition Against Police Crimes and Repression, and specifically as a white member of CAPCAR, because as people have been talking about, we certainly are disappointed that the programs that everybody's been talking about weren't fully funded, and we were hoping they would be. But also, I just wanted to recognize that on the 16th of May was the 1-year passage of the devastating tornado in North City specifically. And so I'm hoping people do continue to show up to protests and rallies and fill out the survey, because all of the money, $150 million, but all the money really should go to reinvestment and recovery and trauma and care for the people in North City. This has always been a systemic and historic issue with North City, and I'm actually kind of disappointed, not surprised, but disappointed that there aren't more white South Side folks here. We've been noticing that as well at the rallies and the protests, and we have an vested interest in this budget, in what's happening in North City. And a lot of people have been saying, if the tornado happened here on the South Side, what would we be looking at? It would be completely different, let alone the systemic and historic disinvestment and neglect of North City, which is a mostly black community. The other main thing I'm talking about as a white member of CAPCAR is, and why I reject the budget, is it's being held hostage by the police board and the police department. We were the ones that worked on local control and the civilian oversight bill being passed in 2012 and 2015. And of course, everybody knows now that it's controlled by the state. And that in and of itself means that our budget is being held hostage, because we don't know what then is going to happen to the services, the programs, even more extensively, when they finally, after being subpoenaed, have to come and present their budget, to the, I guess it's the HUD's committee that they're doing. Oh, it's the budget committee. Okay, sorry. So, I mean, can you imagine saying you're not going to present it? They had to be subpoenaed, and with all the lawsuits, people suing each other, the city, the president of the board, Jamal and Mike Milton's suit, I mean, it just feels like a mess, you know, of what's going to happen to our city. Vital services, programs, we're all going to be affected by it, including white South Side City residents who rarely, as a united group, speak up, stand up, and say anything about what's happening around the systemic and historic racism of this city. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Casey Fowler Finn of the 6th Ward.
Casey Fowler Finn, Ward 6. I'm probably going to be repeating a lot of what other people said. It's hard for me to explain to my young children who are 7 and 5 how the city spends its money, because kids get it. They want their neighbors to thrive, and building up community is so much more productive than reactionary responses. I'd like you guys to reduce investment in the police, who are a little physical threat to half our community, actually more than half our community, since we're only 45% white in this city. And to the white people in this room, do you all know that our black neighbors brace every single summer when police-caused deaths, particularly of black people, are highest? They brace every time summer comes up. We have 0 point of reference for understanding this as white-bodied people. I also think we should take police out of the public safety category in the budget, because that's extremely misleading in St. Louis. So please, instead, invest in our black and brown neighbors in North City, where we have systematically disinvested from for decades. And that is at a great loss to our city's vibrancy and tax revenue. I'd like you guys to fund programs like Right to Counsel, violence prevention, youth programming, and other communities that build up a stronger St. Louis and act as proactive and supportive programs rather than reactive and punitive.
Thank you. Next we have, I'm not sure if it's Damon or Damon Stark of the 11th Ward.
Good evening. My name is Damon. I am a resident of the 11th Ward, and I work for Action St. Louis as the Housing Justice Organizer.
I'm sorry, Damon, could you state your last name as well?
Starks. Just want to make a quick note. I understand that this is not a voting matter tonight, but I see that it's under quorum for the budget hearing. I find that disrespectful since we are here. So just want to make a quick note of that. Understand that it's not a voting matter, but still say something. I oppose this police budget. I just want to say it's been 3 years that we are still fighting to fully fund Right to Counsel. Honestly, I'm getting tired of asking for Right to Counsel to get fully funded. I find it highly disrespectful that the police will ask for a budget that would nearly break St. Louis, since they do not have the respect to even show their face and even come to y'all and propose their own budget. So therefore, I purposely, disrespectfully oppose their budget, and that is on purpose. I ask that Right to Counsel get fully funded for $2.5 million. Also fully fund the Code Blue and the Office Violence Prevention. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Audrey Kidwell of the 6th Ward.
Need my notes. Hi, good evening. My name is Audrey Kidwell, and I'm a resident of Ward 6. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I'm a little disappointed that the full committee isn't here, and I hope that they will be reviewing the recording. First, I'd like to thank President of the Board of Aldermen, Megan Green, and also Budget Director Paul Payne for bringing a lawsuit against the state of Missouri to fight for local control of our police department. The city absolutely needs local control and oversight of SLMPD, and we should not increase their funding. St. Louis already spends more on policing than 85% of U.S. cities, and SLMPD already receives 25% of the city's general fund. SLMPD also kills more people per capita than any other police department in the country. In recent months, they've begun cooperating closely with ICE to arrest immigrants with no criminal record other than their lack of status, tearing families apart in the process. And just a few weeks ago, SLMPD responded with disproportionate force against protesters exercising their right to free speech at the mayor's State of the City address, resulting in the hospitalization of civilians. Such egregious behavior is clearly not in the interest of public safety and should not be rewarded with additional funding. The proposed budget would take funds away from departments and services that actually do keep St. Louisans safe: violence prevention, renter protection, youth programs, support for the unhoused, and tornado recovery, to name just a few. While these programs received some funding in the proposed budget passed by the Board of E&A last month, there are still funding gaps. Code Blue is underfunded by $1.5 million, and this program ensures our unhoused neighbors have a warm place to sleep during dangerously cold weather. That is more important than additional funding for police. Right to Counsel is underfunded by $1.5 million, and this program protects renters from eviction and homelessness. That is more important than additional funding for police. The Office of Violence Prevention is underfunded by $4.1 million, and that program does more for public safety than SLMPD by a long way. It's absolutely more important than additional funding for police. The board must reallocate the proposed $25 million addition to the police budget to these critical programs and services which literally save lives. When these services don't receive funding, when their money goes to the police instead, the police become the solution to all the problems facing our city. They become the solution to poverty, to homelessness, to poor youth outcomes. And what solution do the police offer to address these problems? Prison. That's the only solution our police force is currently equipped to provide. They put our vulnerable citizens, disproportionately black and brown citizens, in prison. They don't keep us safe, and until SLMPD can prove it has more tools in its tool belt that actually help our most vulnerable, that actually keep our communities safe, they don't deserve a penny's more of additional funding. Lastly, the Board of Police Commissioners does not represent us. They are unelected appointees, and the majority of them have conflicts of interest in that they are businessmen who profit from deals with the police. None of them live north of Delmar, leaving our northern neighborhoods without a commissioner from their area. We cannot allow the Board of Police Commissioners to bankrupt our city just because their attorney told them they could. The attorney that we are paying for, by the way, that is in the police budget. For all of these reasons, I demand that the Board of Aldermen stand up to the Board of Police Commissioners, reject the egregious budget, and fund the programs that actually contribute to public safety in St. Louis. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Emma Burrows of the 3rd Ward.
Hello. Never spoken into a microphone before, so bear with me. My name is Emma Burrows, and I'm a resident of Ward 3. Two of my neighbors right now, one on either side of my house, are facing eviction. A few weeks ago, I accompanied one of those families to their eviction summons. They asked me for help extremely last minute, literally 30 minutes before the summons, on my birthday nonetheless, because they were scared and they had nowhere else to turn. They didn't even have a ride. The landlord showed up with an attorney, and my neighbors showed up with me. I did my best to help in the moment, but without time to do research and prepare, and of course pressure to follow the flow of the court, I later figured out that we were all pressured, they were pressured, into signing a very biased agreement. Not because their case wasn't valid, but because the playing field wasn't level. Since then, it's been 3 weeks, that family's been evicted. Despite showing up to court, it's counted against them while searching for housing. They've luckily found a temporary place to couch surf in Dupo, but the other family on the other side of me lives in uncertainty every day. I promise I'm getting back to the point, but for a moment, just put yourself in their shoes. If you were facing eviction tonight, if you had nowhere to turn and no money to afford to move, what would you do to keep yourself or your family housed? What lines might you cross? And would you do anything illegal? Because I think I might. Sorry too, but please don't assume that you could call 211 and have your answers. We should all know the reality of our social services by now. 211 is great in theory, but it's only as great as the services it can refer to. Without proper and thorough support, telling someone to simply call 211 is a dismissal dressed up as a solution. So, my point, safety and violence prevention does not come from more police. It comes from programs and support that address why people reach a point of desperation in the first place. Every dollar beyond the $203 million immediately allocated to our police department is a dollar taken away from the social services and support that your constituents actually need, the programs that actually keep us safe. I also I learned tonight, don't care about that $5 million that was allocated for the police-related judgments. That's bogus for so many more reasons that I can get into within this 3 minutes. I'm urging this board to fund the right to counsel by $1.5 million more, fund the Office of Violence Prevention by $4 million more, and fund Code Blue by $1 million more. All of these services should be fully funded. Go back to this budget, fight for the programs that keep our neighbors stable, and reject any increase to the police budget that comes at their expense. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Danny Kahn of the 2nd Ward.
Hi, Danny Kahn, 2nd Ward. Thank you, Rasheen. Thank you, Michael, for being here. It's clear to probably everyone here that we are in this situation because of the police takeover. The state is trying to wipe out our city. I have testified multiple times already to explain how cowardly any budget in which gives the police $1 more than the legal minimum. And so I'm going to just put some new information out that I've found really interesting lately. I've recently learned that thanks to Rasheen Aldridge's clarification that the fire department has not been receiving their raises at parity with the police like they're supposed to. I just thought that was interesting. I've been paying attention to this committee in the last month, and it is clear to me that making the city livable and accountable to the people's needs has not been a priority. I recently learned on April 1st that after Mayor Spencer argued with Sonia Gray about supposedly not being in the loop about the Board of Police Commissioners' budget demands since February, the next agenda item was for the police to get rid of their reserve police vehicles because the storage site was supposedly broken into. I just want you all to keep this in mind now that you have subpoenaed them. Please pay attention this year if they buy any new vehicles. You should be asking about the old ones. There are clear long-time conflicts of interest that Don Brown has with the contract for police vehicles. If they have so many vehicles in storage that they need to get rid of them, you better verify that they are not spending any of our tax money on new ones. And if they sell those public vehicles, do we get those return on public funds, or does that just enrich Don Brown? Last thing I wanted to say is to amplify the testimony from North City hearing recently and others today that are displaying how community-driven public safety is far cheaper, less violent, and way more effective at preventing poverty-rooted crime, homelessness, and death. Fully fund Right to Counsel, Code Blue, Office of Violence Prevention, Office of New Americans, the Fire Department, and give the corrupt killer-ass cops as little money as legally required. Thank you. Thank you for being here, Daniela.
Thank you. Next, we have Kat Logan Smith of the 7th Ward.
Good evening. I'm sorry to bother you again, but I'm from the 7th Ward, so welcome to Fox Park and Tower Grove East. We're glad you're here. First, I want to start out saying, on behalf of my South Side neighbors, we support the North Side, and we think they should get $150 million in recovery money from the RAM settlement. So we're going to make that really clear because they need to be made whole in all the ways. Meanwhile, I happen to know that you are not authorized to put anything in the budget. You can only take it out. So I've been looking at what can come out of the budget. And I am still mystified by the building division, okay? And anybody else who's looked will know. They have in this budget $1.6 million for computer and systems development. What are they designing over there with that kind of money? Like, what the heck? Like, should they talk to Clayco maybe? Maybe they could borrow Clayco's software, because whatever we're spending $1.6 million on for computer development in the building division is really suspicious. I'm like, because we've been spending it for a lot of years, and I keep wondering, like, are we buying the wrong thing, or why? It's like, I don't know. And once you've spent that much money, you would hope you would have something for that. I'm not seeing it, guys, and we need to dig into that money. Okay, so that's $1.6 million. And then there's the $750,000, okay, for one building that we don't own, that some private investor owns, and we've been spending $750,000 for many years now to secure the building. And then LCRA has $78,000 in their budget to secure the building. So I want to know a couple things. A, why isn't over $500,000 enough to secure the Railway Exchange building? And it's not our building anyway, so why are we putting our money into it? And B, if we're going to put millions of dollars into securing a building that is not ours, when our city needs to be rebuilt on the north side, we better put some liens on that bad boy, so when that building sells, we get that money back, okay? I mean, just as a taxpayer, I'm incensed that we keep throwing money. We're subsidizing a developer at $750,000 a year. That's a lot of money. And the building division on May 7th in the hearing, they completely obfuscated that is for, because they're like, oh, well, that's to secure vacant buildings, vaguely. It's for one building. Okay, so track the money, look at the invoices, and tell me it's for one building, 60 grand a month. How many people in here make 60 grand a year? Anybody? I'm just saying, we know what our median income is. We know what works in the city. And they also testified that the security that they paid that much money for didn't even work to secure the building. And so I'm like, okay, at the very least, we could buy failure a lot cheaper than that. I could personally fail for only $500,000. So I'm just insane. It's making me crazy. We have April Ford Griffin testified too this week that they have built hundreds of rental units using all this public funding. So my biggest question is, because I've been a renter in St. Louis, and I know a lot of renters in St. Louis, is we've built a lot of rental units, so I want to know who the landlords are. Because the developers are always in here whining about tax breaks or whatever, but the nonprofit builders are slowly and quietly building houses that people can afford without tax abatements, and they're just getting it done. And nonprofit builders keep a very low profile, and I'm thinking that's where I want my tax dollars to go. Really it is. I want the nonprofit builders to get our tax dollars to build housing. And I really think we should just make that a thing and stop subsidizing developers who just keep taking and taking without giving and giving. So that's about all I have to say today. Let's put money into what works. The Office of Violence Prevention and its programs works. Code Blue works. Right? The Office of New Americans works. And so it's a really bad joke when government cuts programs that work and throws money at failures. And we can't afford to do that anymore. We can't. North City has been scraped, and the rest of us are getting scraped too, and all the billionaires are in our pockets, and we can't afford it anymore. So we have to scuttle the special interests and take care of each other. So.
Thank you. Next we have Donna Cutelli of the county.
Yeah. Hello, my name's Donna Cutelli. Man, I don't need a mic, shoot. Okay. Yeah, St. Louis County, I'm sorry. So, I'm out in St. Louis every day, and I see exactly what how St. Louis runs. It runs on the hustle of independent contractors, workers, gig workers, and everyday renters who are doing everything right to keep this economy moving. But right now, a quiet crisis is draining our momentum. When more than half of tenants facing an eviction trial walk out with an execution notice, that's not just a housing failure, it's a systematic breakdown. A community cannot build a legacy, grow its economy like they preach, or innovate when its foundation is constantly shifting. In 2023, this city made a smart strategic move by passing the right to counsel ordinance. It was a promise to the community. But right now, the data shows a massive gap between our vision and our execution. The program is operating on a fraction of what actually takes to protect our people, forcing us into a reactive loop. We are spending millions trying to fix the back-end fallout of homelessness rather than executing a clean defense on the front end. In any successful venture, you don't wait for the engine to fail before you maintain it. You get oil changes, right? You analyze the problem and adjust the strategy, and you fund the solution. That is why we are calling for a dedicated permanent investment of a bare minimum of at least $2 million for the tenants' rights campaign and eviction defense. Think of $2 million not as an expense, but as a high-yield capital for the future of St. Louis. I sound like a politician now. This is how we elevate our neighborhoods. It funds aggressive community outreach, or the community outreach aggressively, so people know their rights before a crisis hits. It keeps families stable, kids in their schools, and workers focused on building their businesses instead of constant survival mode. Let's stop managing decline and start funding a proactive, visionary blueprint for community growth. Let's allocate the $2 million and protect the people who build this city. I have one question. Why do we, the people, have to earn the funding? But where is STLPD? They don't have to show up and beg for the money like we do. It's automatically allocated. This suggests favoritism, biases, and the like. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Tyler Peters of the 8th Ward.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Tyler Peters. I'm a resident of the 8th Ward, and obviously I'm in opposition to this budget. I'm going to start off by saying that the police don't need another single penny more than what they have already been legally allocated. Y'all know this. You've heard it already. I'm also here today in support of North City, as well as the public workers who run this city and provide the essential services that actually keep St. Louis safe. Police have already seen an increase in their raises, and I know that there is an allocated 3% increase for the majority of public employees, but I'm curious as to whether or not the city has implemented the recommendations from the citywide compensation study done last year. There was several recommendations done, and I'm hoping to see that the people who are being deployed to actually work with St. Louis residents to improve their lives are going to be treated with the same, if not more, respect than the ones that killed them. So, and of course, we know that city workers provide essential institutional knowledge that actually helps these services run smoothly. About 80 people, that's also 80 families who are going to be out of employment, and we'll have to find a new way to navigate life. So how are we going to retain and recruit new talent that's actually going to keep employees in our city and making sure that we have the institutional knowledge and expertise to make sure these services run? I think that you all know how destructive this racist state takeover and its budget mandate will be, and I know that lawsuits have been filed. We all appreciate that, but that's your duty. We know that the state has already overruled multiple mandates from the constituents. And this is just another example of fascism on our doorstep. And we are imploring you all to stand up to that, to have the courage to have a say, to say no. Regardless of how the lawsuit comes out, we are imploring you all to have the courage. We will have your backs. We have shown out time and time again, and we're willing to stand with you all should the state, should the federal government do something else. And as others have stated, as I said, I am also here in support of North City. St. Louis won't be whole until North City is whole. Thank you for your time. Please have a spine.
Thank you. Next, we have in opposition James Myers of the 9th Ward.
How you doing? My name is James Myers. I'm a resident of the 9th Ward. So many of us are here tonight because the city keeps asking people who are suffering the most to sacrifice the most. Every year they tell us that there is not enough money for housing, for shelter, for violence prevention, not enough money to stop evictions, not enough money to keep people alive during the wintertime, but somehow there is always money for the fucking police. And we have to ask ourselves, what kind of a city is being built when the answer to every social failure involves a badge, a gun, and a jail cell? You know, I want to tell some truth tonight. You cannot claim to care about violence when we're refusing to fully fund the Office for Violence Prevention. You cannot claim to care about human life while cutting code blue protections, while people will freeze on the streets in the wintertime. You cannot claim to care about justice while attacking the right to counsel and allowing working people and poor people to be thrown out of their homes because they cannot afford a legal defense. This is not public safety. This is organized abandonment. The city has spent decades disinvesting in black communities, starving neighborhoods of jobs, housing, schools, grocery stores, clinics, opportunities, and then turns around and acts shocked when desperation produces crises like the ones people in North City see every single day, not just in the tornado, but every single day. They create the conditions for instability and then criminalize people who are forced to survive inside of it. And the people of this city are tired of being treated like problems to contain instead of human beings to invest in. Because a mother facing eviction does not need police circling her block. A child traumatized by violence does not need another armed response after the fact. A man sleeping outside during the winter does not need surveillance, they need shelter. Politicians in City Hall or in Jefferson City, wherever, will tell you that policing creates safety, but if police alone created safety, then North City would be the safest fucking place in America right now. Safety comes from power, safety comes from housing, safety comes from food, dignity, and community control over the conditions of our lives. What we are seeing with this budget is a willingness to spend millions of dollars to manage the consequences of poverty while refusing to seriously invest in ending that poverty itself. While communities will suffer in the prison industrial while communities suffer in the prison industrial complex profits, every eviction, every abandoned neighbor, every young person pushed into desperation becomes another opportunity for criminalization and incarceration. The system keeps investing in punishment after crisis instead of preventing crisis in the first place. That's backwards, it's immoral, and the people have a right to reject this. We are not asking the city for charity, we are demanding priorities that value human life over punishment. We need to fund the people before we fund repression. We need to fund prevention before we fund reaction. We need to fully fund the Office for Violence and Prevention. We need to fully fund Right to Counsel. We need to fully fund Code Blue. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have in opposition Mindy Wolf of the 6th Ward.
Hello, my name is Mindy Roof, and I live in the 6th Ward. I applaud these powerful remarks. I'm pretty nervous, so mine are going to be short and simple. I'm here today to ask for a few things. I want North City to get the $150 million from the Rams Fund. It needs to rebuild after the tornado. I want to see North City thrive. I don't want another dollar of the city's budget to go to the police. I feel genuinely afraid the police are going to bankrupt the city. I want to increase funds to the Right to Counsel. I want Operation Code Blue to be fully funded. I want more money in general for our unhoused neighbors. I want money to fund the Office of New Americans. Thank you.
Next, we have in opposition Kate Kilgo of the 7th Ward.
Hi, my name is Kate Kilgo. I am a proud resident of the 7th Ward. I am not an accountant. I'm not a public speaker, not great at speech writing. I'm an artist. I just want to say that, like, I want to times two every other comment I've heard before. Thank you, all my neighbors. I appreciate all of your skills and talents and the things that you do so well. So I just figured I'd tell you a little bit about what I love about St. Louis and why. I've moved around a lot. I've been nomadic. My parents moved us around because of my dad's job, but even as an adult, I chose jobs that moved me around and assigned me to random cities. And one of those cities happened to be St. Louis in the summer of 2012. And I fell in love with this place. And like a magnet, it just kept pulling me back. And even though I kept moving around, in 2019, I moved here permanently. And so for the last 6.5 years, I have put roots down. I found a city and a community that I love deeply. I found a job and a career that I love, painting houses. I love getting to restore and repair these beautiful old homes that we have here, and getting to do it in a sustainable way. I know the difficulties of balancing a budget when that's not my skill, and running my own business and having to do that. And I know that putting my money towards the things that rebuild and repair are what keep me getting referrals and keep people coming back to me to refinish and repair their homes. And I think that the same principle applies to our city budget. When we fund things that help to care and make things last longer than they have already been around. For example, like funding things like Office of Violence Prevention helps save and preserve lives, helps save and preserve relationships. I believe that a successful community is relational practice and caring for other people. I also believe that funding right to counsel keeps people safe and keeps people around long term. We say that the mayor says that one of our biggest issues is keeping people in the city, and as someone who is a transplant and who is trying desperately to be able to save up and buy a house and make this my home and spends all of my emotional energy investing in the city, I want to live here, but budgets like this and police like we have make it not a safe place for me to want to live here, or most people to want to live here. And if we want a safe place for people to live, we have to fund what works. Fully fund right to counsel, fully fund Office of Violence Prevention, give youth more programs than just jobs. They're kids. Give them better programs. Why is the only youth program about jobs? And just a little share of art. People don't belong in cages, and that's all that the police can offer them.
Thank you. Next we have, I believe the last name is Taylor.
Taryn Taylor.
Taryn Taylor of the 7th Ward.
Taryn Taylor, 7th Ward. I just want to say it is very disheartening to still be arguing this egregious budget. This budget does not reflect the things that we need in the city of St. Louis. We don't need more police. I just recently moved to the 7th Ward on Jefferson. And as a person who was just recently released from St. Louis County Jail, it is very difficult to sleep at night with the amount of police sirens that I hear daily. And they aren't just cruising down the street with their sirens on, they're speeding down the street with their sirens on. I hear people hitting their brakes hard almost crashing into parked cars and things like that on Jefferson. You can only imagine how it was during the winter, or how it is right now during this storm. To live in a city that only wants to fund the police is sickening. And I just want to say, I can't wait until every one of the other couple 100,000 people that live in this city rise up and decide enough is enough. And they decide enough of the police, enough of this government that says it wants to abolish all the things that it holds dearly, i.e. slavery, cruel punishment, and all the things that history has shown us it will constantly repeat. St. Louis was the last state to abolish slavery, and so we're told. As a person who worked inside the St. Louis County Jail and fed every inmate in there, I can tell you that's not true. Slavery still exists. It is here, right here, in your face. Everybody sitting out here that doesn't make over 100,000, 60,000, whatever was mentioned earlier, that person is a slave. And right now the masters are asking us to pay for more slave catchers. What the fuck? So I'm here to say no to the budget. Zero the police budget out. They don't need any money. They have unspent dollars, so they can spend that. They can sell those cars. They can sell their police budget board on eBay to get the money that they need, if they really need it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Brian Pearson Jr. of the 3rd Ward.
Hello, my name is Brian Pearson Jr. I'm not going to call any names, it's up there, but one of the 3 people, one of them a part of the Office of New Citizens. They call me not good for St. Louis, Gabriella and whatever. But I'm a person that's raised money. I've raised about $500,000. I struggle every year because of the racism and the homophobia in our business community. I've brought thousands of people to St. Louis with my tech company. I can barely get any inroads in with the city because of the racism. There are programs like the Economic Justice Accelerator that I was super excited for, but then it went towards people that didn't have actually businesses. And then now that person's in jail. But you know, there's people that on the stage that are friends with some of the people that had those businesses, and they belong in jail too because they committed fraud, but they're not. And as a person that never applied for those funds, and no, I'm not talking to you, Michael Browning, and I'm not talking to you, Mr. Aldridge. I wish this was a Q&A. I say that because, you know, of my $500,000 raised, most of it came outside of St. Louis, and I've hired 75 people in this city. Put people at jobs at Amazon, not warehouses, software developers, Netflix, Meta. I see in this budget, there's no money for this Economic Justice Accelerator. You go to places like Arch Grants and they don't believe that black people can run tech companies. They invest in product-based businesses. Akeem Shannon from Flipstick moved away, and he says he gets more acceptance in his community in a different place than he did get here, even though he got money from Arch Grants and from these different things. And the city keeps bowing down to that. I wish that there was a program similar to what Baltimore has that invests in entrepreneurs. I wish this was a Q&A, then people just stone-faced looking at me, and I wish we can have a dialogue about this. But, and these are things that should be in the budget. But as a person that is known by Mrs. I'll just call her Daniela's friends as bad for St. Louis, as a black man that's raised money and is still raising money, I've raised $30,000 this year. And we talk about these tax breaks and things like that. When I go to the IRS, I get tax breaks. But you know what? I put that money back and I reinvested it every time. I yield my time.
Thank you. Next, we have Toppler Sudlick of the county in opposition.
What's up? I'm Christopher Sudlick. I go by Topher. I live in Northwoods out in the county. I've lived there for about half of my life, since 2009. I work with a bunch of groups and a bunch of people all over the city. I help people organize their communities. I spend a lot of time out canvassing and talking to people. So I hear a lot about the issues that people face. And, that at the end of the day, a budget should be about addressing the issues that a society, a community, a city faces. And all over the place, I see people working very, very hard. Their wages aren't going up. Their rents are skyrocketing, and things are getting harder. Sometimes their rents go up too much, and they can't afford it anymore. Sometimes some of these AI companies are resulting in huge cuts in jobs. Sometimes it's outsourcing. But a lot of people are losing their jobs, and when they become poor, instead of providing them with services to find a new path, to find a way back up onto their feet, we're cutting those services. And instead, we're putting it into police, and we're criminalizing that poverty. Poverty through no fault of their own. People that are working hard, that are putting it in, that are out there looking, that are doing everything they can, and they just can't make it meet. And instead of helping them, we're putting all of this money, all of this increased budget into cops. And the excuse is it's because of crime, but cops don't prevent crime. The Office of Violence Prevention prevents crime. Cops, if you aren't paid for, let's say, 2 or 4 weeks by your boss, they skip a couple checks, they owe you a couple grand, you can't call the cops. But if you, hungry from those missed checks, take a couple 20s out of the till so that you can eat a meal for the first time in a few days, your boss can call the cops and slam your face into the concrete. So what are the cops for? What are we using them for? We're using them to boost the interests of rich people, to keep those rents high, to keep those wages low, and to screw everybody over. And it's the same on a lot of these other parts of the budget. Are we investing in communities and people and housing and things that the community will use and enjoy, or are we investing in the profits of rich people when we give developers money to rent things out, things that are going to keep bringing them in money later? What are we really doing with this budget? We shouldn't be doing this. No more money to police and fund the stuff everybody here has talked about tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have in opposition Inez Bordeaux of the 3rd Ward.
Good evening. My name is Inez Bordeaux. I use she, her pronouns. I am the committee woman of the 3rd Ward. I'm a little frustrated that the entire committee is not here tonight, like other folks have said. I'm also incredibly frustrated that I even have to be here tonight because I should be at home in my moo-moo watching the San Antonio Spurs take on the Oklahoma City Thunder while drinking jalapeno pineapple margaritas out of a wine glass. That is what I should be doing tonight, but instead I am here to say the same shit that I have been saying. The same shit that I said last year and the year before that and 5 years before that, that in order to reduce crime in this city, to make police obsolete, all we have to do is cure poverty. All we have to do is invest in people. All we have to do is invest in the things that actually create public safety, like safe, affordable housing, food security, education, youth programming, so on and so forth. But yet, here I am again. Instead of watching basketball, I'm doing this. I could talk about SLMPD and the 70 pending lawsuits that they have against them for a variety of civil rights violations and excessive force cases. We could be talking about how they crash into gay bars and lie about it, how they crash into church signs and lie about it, how they beat a fellow cop during a protest and we are stuck paying the $5 million payout from that, how they murder people indiscriminately. Everyone knows, I've said it year after year after year again, SLMPD is the most murderous police department in the entire country. They kill more people per capita than any other police department in the entire country. I have 3 friends, Gina, Tony, and Tammy, whose sons were all murdered by SLMPD, and to this day, those women and those families have never received even a modicum of justice for the murder of their sons. I could also talk about ICE, how SLMPD, we don't have to have ICE agents in St. Louis because SLMPD is doing the work of ICE for them. They don't even have to come here. Instead of talking about SLMPD, I want to talk about how the right to counsel should be fully funded. I've been evicted. I know exactly what it feels like to show up in court and have nobody on your side and the state not give a shit about you and what happens to you, your family belongings, your children. They don't care. We should be talking about how the Impacted Tenants Fund has the ability to do great good in the city of St. Louis, but it's not funded properly. We could be talking about how youth programming is shit in this city. We are nearing the time when the downtown business owners, every summer you can depend on them doing 3 things: death, taxes, complaining about black kids running around downtown because they don't have anything else to do. We could be talking about tornado recovery because North City is the North Star of St. Louis. And until black people are whole, this city will never prosper. Nothing we ever think about doing, touching, will succeed until St. Louis does right by North City. We should be talking about the Office of Violence Prevention. No matter what SLMPD's propaganda machine tries to show you on social media, the reason we've had a 20+ drop in homicides in St. Louis is because of Freedom Community Center, because of organizations like Show Me Peace that do the work of going into the communities and doing violence intervention work. It is not because of SLMPD. It's because people in our communities are putting their bodies on the line to go out and intercede with these actions. Frankly, this budget should have never made it out of E&A. It should have never made it out of E&A. So now they've passed the buck to this committee, and the buck is going to stop. It stops with y'all. It stops with y'all.
That is your time, Ms. Pardo.
Give me, Alderman, just let me cook 1 more minute. The Board of Police Commissioners didn't even deign themselves to show up in front of this committee to explain their budget request. They haven't even spent all of the money from last budget cycle. They still have money that they haven't spent, and yet here they are asking for more. And so, to you all, whom I know, I'm asking you, what do you have to lose? What do you have to lose in rejecting this budget? They don't like you. They don't even respect you. So I'm going to ask you to kind of tap into that petty side that, I'll lend you some of my Scorpio energy. Reject this budget. Do not give SLMPD 1 cent more than what we are legally required to give them. And if you really want to be bold, go ahead and zero that budget out. Zero the budget out. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. What are they going to do? File another lawsuit? Okay. Okay. And lastly, I want to say this with the utmost disrespect possible. Like, it's coming from here, my diaphragm. Fuck SLMPD. As a staff, a record label, and a crew, and anybody who's cool with SLMPD, fuck you too.
Thank you. Next, we have Jerry Connolly of the 6th Ward in opposition.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, all the people. Thanks for the opportunity to speak tonight. Don't have a lot of things in an organized fashion here, but I wanted to touch on transparency and city systems. It feels like we're still governing in the 20th century at best. We have websites that don't contain necessary documents. You know, we've had now 2 weeks of meetings. None of the slide presentations that were given to you during those meetings are available online. We have to take screenshots of the video in order to follow the documents. All that material should be online. The City Sunshine Portal, which hadn't been functional for about 18 months, and Alderman Browning, I appreciate you getting that resolved about a year ago, but unfortunately, since that time, most requests have not had the records uploaded where the general public can view them. Only the person requesting them can access the record. And it's totally random as to which requests get uploaded. I submitted a couple of requests back in February. I was charged fees for those requests, and I got the same document in response to 2 requests that cost me $20. Somebody else submitted a very similar request, got the pages I got plus another 25 pages, and wasn't charged a fee. Fortunately, he put that document into a dry folder, and the only reason that the public had information on the Armory data center's design and some of the materials with the permit application was because this particular individual put that document online. Other entities posted it online. It wasn't done by the city until the very day before, and it was housed on the Board of Aldermen site. Our conditional use process is antiquated. If the process wasn't a fix, a developer would have come to the conditional use hearing and given a thorough, detailed presentation. They did not, because they knew it was going to get rubber stamped. We had to listen to them speak for over an hour, and then there was 3+ hours of public testimony. There was well over 100 emails, carefully crafted, whereas Greater St. Louis and the developer sent in a template that people docu-signed, and maybe 3 or 4 people said they were a city resident. Everyone else said they were quote-unquote community stakeholder. And whose voices is the city listening to? I urge you, in terms of with your colleagues, to look very hard at giving the public a voice in data center approval. And yesterday there was a hearing, again lengthy, that's now available on YouTube, and a lot of folks speaking of that were calling for the public to approve a facility in the same way that a liquor license or homeless shelter, where the people putting it in have to go and get signatures. So instead of getting on to the chat on a meeting, the developer consultants, could get out there and get the public to, support their project rather than having it steamrolled through without any mechanism for resident consent. I wanted to circle back to, on transparency items, it's now, 12 years since the debut of the city's YouTube video channel. We still don't have the Airport Commission, the Affordable Housing Commission, the Mental Health Board, and the St. Louis Senior Fund. None of those meetings are archived on the YouTube. And the Affordable Housing Commission don't even retain an audio-visual recording of their Zoom meeting. So that's something that needs to be addressed. It's over 20 years since the Affordable Housing Trust Fund was put in place. The ordinance requires $5 million minimum to be allocated, which is the current allocation. If that was adjusted for inflation, it would be over $9 million a year. And we need to find money to boost that. And finally, I just want to ask you to reject the funding, the additional funding that SODC is seeking through the Port Authority. The Port Authority is part of the city budget, and just randomly they keep increasing the fee that flows from the city to the Port Authority and then through SODC. They've got plenty of funds to keep them going. Thank you very much.
For our final speaker of the night in opposition, Elisa Fogelman of the 6th Ward.
Yeah, hi. Good evening. Thanks for coming out. I didn't prepare anything to say tonight, but what I do have to say is reject the budget, no more money for the police, $150 million of the RAM settlement to the north side and more. Every empty seat in here, up here, back here is a disappointment. I'm a South City resident. I'm not from here. I've lived here a long time. I care about the city enormously. I care about all the hardworking people. I care about all of us who come out and we talk to you and we implore you and we stand with you. And like Ms. Bordeaux was saying, they don't like you anyway. Stand up. Stand up. We're at a crossroads here. Anniversary of the tornado a couple of days ago. The police board of commissioners is takeover by the state. Fuck them all. We need to stand as a city. We need to stand as a whole city. South side, north side, every side, west side, everything. You name it, all of it. If we let the black folks down, us white people, if we let the black folks down, this whole city fails. I don't know what to say. I'm looking at all those numbers up there. It takes a lot of work to do that. I have a lot of respect for Megan Green. I have a lot of respect for the people that are doing a lot of this hard work. Jerry, awesome guy. Kara Spencer, not so much. Get her out of here. But the point is, all those numbers are great, and there's a lot of satisfaction in crunching all those numbers. It feels great, I guess. I mean, I'm an artist. I don't do that shit. But there's a lot of satisfaction. I get that. But it's a reality that doesn't relate to the reality that all of us see every day. We know the programs. I can't even name them. You're all smarter than me. You all made these speeches up. I didn't do that. Fund the programs that are there. Fund them fully. Code Blue, Right to Counsel, youth programs, parks, programs. There's so much stuff we could do. Infrastructure, clean water. I mean, you don't have to be that educated to see what this city needs. We all tell you. You guys know. You guys are here every day. I mean, you're working for us. Work for us. Stand up. Now's the time. No more money for the cops. They're dangerous. They're vicious. They don't serve us. All they do is put people away. And they're handing our people to ICE. This is wrong. But thanks for showing up, and thanks for y'all. I really appreciate y'all, and no more money for the cops. Screw them.
Thank you. That will be all.
Thank you. With that, I'm going to see if any members from the committee have anything just to say on the budget or anything. Alderman Browning.
I just want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. It's really important that we represent you, and what you're saying tonight is absolutely true. There's a lot that goes into this city, and there's a lot of things that we need to figure out. This state takeover is top of mind for all of us right now. As you saw in the news, we all got summons so that they can compel us to do something. But the only thing I'm compelled to do is represent the people that I'm supposed to represent. Those are the people that I actually am voted in by, and I can't be removed by any unappointed, unelected board. So we're going to be looking at this. As you know, these lawsuits are there to figure out how much we have to spend legally. So I hear a lot of people saying, don't spend a penny more than we're legally required. That's exactly why these lawsuits are happening, so we can figure that out. Because I don't know if you all saw this, but there's actually a fund called General Fund, and it's actually defined, and so they're trying to say that everything else is the general fund, but they're just proving that their reading comprehension isn't so great. So I really appreciate all your support. We're going to do what we can, and again, thank you for coming out tonight.
Alderman Velasquez.
Thank you. I just really want to say thank you all for being here. I know you could be in other places on a Wednesday night. Sorry, I can't remember what day it is. We've had a lot of budget meetings. I'm going to really echo what Alderman Browning said. There are currently 5 lawsuits, as you know. I think except for the one where the police board sued all of us, all of them are fighting about what's happening now. And so I don't think there's anyone at the Board of Aldermen that believes that $67 million should go to the police between now and the end of June, or that the budget that Mr. Payne presented meets the statutory requirements. Also, a lot of us, myself included, believe it's an unconstitutional law to begin with. But I would just want to thank you for being here, for sharing your perspective with us. And I know that during this process, I know Alderman Aldrich will talk about that and how we're moving forward. But next week, we'll be presenting amendments to the budget. As you know, we can only subtract. We can only add, right? Subtract, sorry. We're actually the only place in the country one of the few places that does that, so if you want to change the charter, we can talk about that. But we'll be going through amendments next week and looking at what we can change and doing some negotiations that hopefully will continue to push this budget in a direction that is for the best of the city and reflects the people.
Don't negotiate with terrorists.
Just echo everything that my colleague said. I always say the Board of Aldermen, when we get the budget, I think someone had mentioned ENA, just process-wise, ENA had already voted the budget out. It's kind of in the Board of Aldermen's hands. And one of the things that's extremely important to us is spaces like this and hearing from the public. This is our 3rd hearing. We will have another hearing on the 27th. Where we will hear from the public before any amendments is made. Also want to thank, as much as you all are frustrated outside of our titles, we also live in this city and very angry that we have I was going to use a different word, but angry that we have a board of police commissioners who do not, make up the whole city when you look at that board, but also don't understand the budget process. We've been serving on this board at least 2 years, and there's something we learn every single day. And you have a rogue board of commissioners that don't understand the city process, let alone the budget process. I appreciate the work that Director Paul Payne has done, and by holding the line and not going 1 cent over, and the work that he's put into this budget. But I also want to thank my colleagues up here, because this week we also understand the importance of making sure that the police department show up. Every other department has come in front of this budget committee. I know they can't wait till it's over, because we've had long meetings, hearing from departments, from OVP, hearing from the Parks Department, hearing from the Building Division, and we did not hear from the police. So this budget committee this week decided to send a subpoena to the Board of Police Commissioners from every commissioner, including the mayor, as well as a budget director, to come in front of us next week before we do any amendments, because we also feel like it's critical that the department that's asking for the most money in the city budget, that receives the most money in public safety, also show up, be transparent, and say why they want whatever additional funds. So we're with you, and we also don't appreciate the disrespect and the lack of transparency that has come from the Police Commissioners Board. So I want to thank everybody for coming out. Also, I want to, again, remind folks that walked in a little late, so I don't have to do this at announcements. There is a QR code in the back. There's a survey that is happening right now around the Rams budget, the Rams bill, and want to get public input on where you would like to see those dollars go. I know many people have made mention to that today, but all those categories from north side to public infrastructure to downtown is in that survey, and it's important that not only you all take it, but also spread the word for your neighbors to also take it. Do we have any written testimony, Madam Clerk?
We have none.
I just went on my rant of announcements. I'll excuse the Alderwoman from the 7th and the Alderman from the 5th, and I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Moved by the Alderwoman from the 6th, second by the Alderman from the 9th. I appreciate you all being here. All in favor, aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.